I think a lot of emphasis is put on these development islands, and people like to hope and think the next major project or mega project is going to save the region, and that doesn't quite materialize. The AT&T building, that's the one that's mentioned the most, along with Railway Exchange. And I just don't see how a project like that can turn around an entire urban core. You mentioned the benefits of kind of being a little more pro-business for a city administration. In a previous interview, you had a discussion regarding liquor licenses. I think there were some complaints about the length of time it takes to obtain one in the city of St. Louis. So how would you try to balance being pro-business and wanting businesses to move into the city with not losing the types of regulations that help protect residents from bad actors or inexperienced actors?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm pro-business per se. I'm pro quality of life, and we have been very supportive of the current liquor licensing process. It can be challenging for an applicant, but it should be. Liquor licensees, when when there are problems, they create havoc in neighborhoods. We've seen that. I live right next to the infamous Rain nightclub that had caused so many problems. The administration of liquor license in the city is basically failed. And so when you have problems, they don't address them. So the neighborhoods have had to be pretty vigilant about who gets liquor licenses. And I think that's important. The proposal to make it easier to get a liquor license, I think, is actually very misguided. I think you're friendly to business by creating the conditions that support business. Public services, infrastructure, public safety. You do those things, business will come. You won't have to pay them to come. When you have a subsidy-driven economy, that can't succeed in the long run. I mean, we've seen the problems that happened when we do that. For example, some years ago, when I was at East West Gateway, we provided a lot of money to rehab Washington Avenue. Wonderful project. Business, a lot of small businesses were moving in, interesting businesses. And then the city poured subsidy into Ballpark Village with the Cardinals. Overnight, that sucked the life out of Washington Avenue. Plus the fact that the city, after building the project, didn't provide any funds for maintenance. So, Washington Avenue now is a shadow of its former self. We basically squandered that investment that we made. So, I think you have to have consistent policies. You have to think about what's important for business, not just throwing money at subsidies. There have been proposals now where people have talked about the 4 largest vacant buildings downtown, the AT&T Tower and the old Macy's Railway Exchange building and a couple of others that, the business groups are trying to put together funding to rehab those buildings. But we've emphasized that without demand, without creating those great conditions for growth, it doesn't make sense to throw money at these buildings. We ought to focus on what we've got, get our house in order, and then the development will come.
I agree with you there. I think a lot of emphasis is put on these development islands, and people like to hope and think the next major project or mega project is going to save the region or save downtown, and that doesn't quite materialize. You've mentioned Ballpark Village. There's a few others, even in downtown West, for example. I don't know the people involved with the Butler Brothers building, but that was another major project that was going to transform downtown West, and it's its own island. And downtown West does have more momentum than downtown, but it's the same thing over and over. I've heard from some people, I wasn't around long enough to know this, but I've heard from some people that the landing, for example, the Cleves landing, has gone up and down like maybe 4 or 5 times over the last few decades. And now again, Advantis is trying to turn it around, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job. But they're also facing issues with the city not helping them out when they need it. So the AT&T building, that's, I would say, the one that's mentioned the most, along with Railway Exchange. And I just don't see how a project like that can turn around an entire urban core. And I don't see why anyone would think it's a good idea to keep placing the same bet over and over.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you. We've preached the same thing. I've been here for a long time, and there are many projects that are supposed to save downtown. Every stadium that was ever built was supposed to save downtown. The soccer team is supposed to save downtown, Union Station, casino, so many other projects were supposed to save downtown. You mentioned the Butler Brothers building now, the Victor Apartments. They've been struggling. They've got 370 apartments in there. They're struggling to fill those apartments because we didn't really think about demand before undertaking a project like that. And again, it's this idea that you can somehow divorce business from public policy, which you can't do. You mentioned the term islands. I think that's what we've created as a series of islands in downtown. Ballpark Village, the soccer stadium area, Union Station, the casino. And those owners, unfortunately, I can understand it, but it's unfortunate. They're self-interested. They want to protect their island. The Cardinals have been a particular problem. They've opposed many of the public policy initiatives that we've advocated because of their own economic or other interests, and they don't want to sit at the table with anybody who doesn't agree with them. Those are the kinds of issues and challenges that we face in trying to move downtown forward.
It's interesting that you say that, because I would, as an outsider, I would think the Cardinals would be on board for anything that can help downtown, since they're a major piece of it. So what in particular have you seen them, if you recall, oppose?
Well, any number of things. One of the problems that we have downtown is these large, insecure parking lots where people gather at night and cause a lot of problems. And so we wrote and supported legislation to provide security at those lots. Cardinals opposed it. Either they didn't want to spend the money, or there were some other political ties that they had. We have an organization downtown, the Community Improvement District, that has been largely ineffectual over a number of years. They came up for reauthorization a couple of years ago. We all pay a tax into this organization, and they plant flowers downtown and do some other things, largely ineffectual. We opposed that reauthorization. The Cardinals very much supported it. They twisted a lot of arms. You have to collect a majority of signatures of a majority of property owners in the area for them to authorize this tax. We opposed it. It passed by one vote. The big businesses downtown supported it. Most of the small businesses did not. The residents absolutely did not, because we see how ineffective the organization is. And they put a ton of money into that campaign. The Cardinals supported it. The Cardinals are represented on the board of this organization. The incoming chairman is from the Cardinals. The current chairman is from Stiefel Nicholas. And, of course, now there's a fair amount of buyer's remorse on the business community, because they're seeing again how ineffective the organization is. But the Cardinals, were a real obstacle there. They've been an obstacle on other things that we have tried to deal with, including things like short-term rentals, which are a clear problem. Liquor licensing, all sorts of things where, for whatever reason, they have not been a friend to our proposals to deal with the problems downtown. Again, it's this kind of island problem that, it's all about self-interest.
Has that current downtown organization been in place since you moved downtown in 2005?
Yeah, that organization has been in place for, 25 years or something. It's been reauthorized a couple of times. There are times when they've done good work, but not in recent years.